since we're gonna keep being on the Valentine's Day love trope here, we're gonna go into an old argument, an old classic pop culture argument. Since we're on the love topic,
which one?
My man's Mr. Ross Geller. Were they or were they not on a break? You go first.
Were they or were they not on a break? Look.
I have like strong opinions about this because I've gotten in arguments with people about this specific thing, and I go like, and I'm like very specific about where I stand. But that's such a classic pop culture moment. You know what I mean?
Is. So
if
you
see, for those of you that don't know, if you've never seen this, there's an episode that one of the most beloved couples in the 90s, early 2000s
series, yes.
in television, which for the record at that time, that was where like culture lived in a sense. Yes. It's not how it was today. Ross Geller and Rachel Green from the show Friends were in a relationship. They were going through some trouble, and they end up on a break, and they end up he ends up sleeping with another woman that night, and then it causes a big rift in their relationship, and then also a rift in their friendship, and then eventually develops itself into a very nuanced love story, super long, down the road as the seasons progress, yes. all the way up to season 10 or whatever, when yes. she gets off the plane. Yeah.
So based off of that, so look, this is the thing.
Where you stand on it? You think he's a cheater or no?
Oh no. So this is my take on this is not as like black and white, because I don't believe in black and white. I'm very shade of gray. Yeah, everything's a shade of gray for me. So
cool.
So to me, the idea is, yes, they were on a break, because she's like,
from us. She said from us specifically.
So they were on a break, and what you choose to do on that break is your responsibility to take. Mm-hmm. So this is the part where I wasn't really a fan of Ross, in the sense, and why I feel like people misinterpret what being on a break meant. Like, yes, right. Being on a break.
Maybe we should define that. What do you think being on a break?
I think I think being on a break is being on a break. You ain't with that person. So you're
not together.
So yeah, but
the social contract is void.
The social contract is void at the moment, and until you have that conversation, that is anywhere between then and that conversation is up to you what you do. But whatever you do during that moment, you got to take responsibility for. Ross can't come up in there and be like, well, we were on a break. You can't fault me for this. It's like, oh no, baby, I can fault you for whatever the hell you chose to do, because you still chose to put your dick inside a woman. You still chose to do this on your own free will. Whether you were upset, whether or not you were feeling some type of way about things, that's on you, baby. Your emotional maturity should have been, let me wait this out and talk to Rachel about this tomorrow. Okay, I don't care how upset I am about things.
There are people that say that being on a break means that they are still together, just not like in each other's spaces. No. There are people that believe that. I've talked to people that are like, no, that's what a break means. Well, I'm like, son, you're just in the wrong relationship.
Well,
then.
I think that like if that's what she chooses to define a break as, which is maybe what Rachel thought the break was, fine, that's not a big deal. That's what she chose to be. That's what she wanted to be the break, but that's not something that either one of them talked about. Now, granted, the reason they didn't talk about that was because Ross just left.
Yeah. Here's what I think about the whole situation. I don't think he's a cheater, because they describe him as a cheater. I don't think, and Rachel specifically clings onto that point about like her feeling like he cheated on her. Mm-hmm. Betrayed, essentially, right? Yeah. I don't think that he's a cheater at all.
Yeah.
I think that they were broken up.
Yeah.
And what I do think is that he's insensitive. I do think that he made a decision that was incredibly wrong, that was incredibly insensitive, and that was an emotional betrayal.
Absolutely.
Because despite the fact that they were arguing and they were upset clearly about very deep issues, right? Despite all those things, I think he owed her a level of respect and a level of decency, because of the way that they painted his love for her.
His love for her, yeah.
Right, you know what I mean? And just out of respect, like, you know what I mean? As a human being, like, I know you get your urges, you may be pissed off and this and that, and like you may be somewhere and there might be somebody there and you might want to like act on impulse and all this shit or whatever. But like you said, it is your responsibility to not only be respectful to the person that just ended your relationship, but also respectful to yourself. Like, you just essentially, if he really did believe that they were broken up, which I think they were, he should have said like, nah, like I have to grieve. Like
Absolutely.
I have to, like, you know what I mean? Like
to that point,
I have to.
I do 100%
and I do
agree
think that people handle grief differently, and some people wild out and they're like, yo, I just need to like cleanse or whatever. Fuck this shit. But proven that doesn't work. It's just ineffective.
Even then, to each their own. But that's again back to the point. Is like
respect for her and then respect for yourself. You know what I mean?
Perfectly fine for him to do whatever he wanted to do. Yes, but you can't be Ross in the sense that you can't go up to her and be like, but you have to forgive me because we were on a break. It's like, no, baby, you chose to do something that you knew consciously would hurt the other person. I know he was under the assumption that she might have been with Mark or whatever.
That was the other point that I was going to bring.
And the idea is the fact it's like, okay, fine. Maybe you do think that she's with Mark. Maybe you do think that. So.
But at that point, here's what I say about that. Yeah. If you do think, so she calls him and she's like, no, I really want to work on this or whatever, right? And previously he had been so deeply paranoid about Mark. He had been so deeply like annoying about Mark to the point where she probably should have broken up with him for it. I'll even go as far as that. Like he was being so paranoid and he was being so insecure that any woman would have had the right to be like, look, bro, you either know what's going on and you trust me, or like we have to like really separate. So like I even to that point, to his projections, I'm with it. Like, bro, you're going overboard right now. You know what I mean? But the moment, not even as a man, as a person, the moment you get that call and you're like in the middle of saying what you were saying, right? And it was like so close to just like, all right, I'm coming back over and we'll work on this. Like, I just want to hold you or whatever the hell that, they were going to say. And he hears his voice. God, that fucking whirlwind and fucking hurricane and tornado inside somebody whenever, is that Mark? Well, no, he just came like,
I'm sure.
Like that in his mind in that moment, everything that he thought that he was insecure about and like got cemented. Like I knew I had a right to be upset about that.
But you know what though? I feel like that's all upon Ross. Because I know, but
to your point about like decency, she should have known not to have him over.
That's true.
She should have known that even though she didn't sleep with him, she should have known the guy that I'm potentially about to lose, this relationship that potentially I'm about to lose. I owe it to that, and I owe it to him, and I owe it to myself. You can't come over because you're already a point of contention. So, like, he definitely shouldn't have fucked anybody because of the fact that, like, they were...
Do you think that, like, okay, because I saw it in both ways here. It was the fact that's like, she shouldn't have had him there simply because of the fact that she knows Ross doesn't like him. But should she have, like... really not looked at the fact that Ross doesn't like him simply because of the fact that she knew she had no other intention with him.
I know she had no other intentions. In her mind, she was 100. But think about it like retrospectively. If Ross would have never called, if he would have just showed up the next day and been like, hey, let's work on this, and Mark had been gone, she had no intentions with Mark at all, blah, 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 blah. If it later on it comes out that he was there the night that they broke up, that's still gonna set him off. It would set me off. Like, bro, like we just spent a whole like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, maybe I overstepped in my paranoia and all this stuff, but like, you didn't think to yourself, like, maybe I need to just be by myself tonight.
And I think that's the beauty of that relationship there and the way that they created that dynamic, like, conflict between both of them, because it is so accurate to the way things happen in real life.
Right.
Like, a lot of the times you're stuck in a situation that you were unintentionally, like, you weren't, sometimes you in your own mind believe you're not doing wrong without realizing how you're affecting your partner. Again, and that goes for both Ross and Rachel. So to me, the idea that they created this dynamic, beautiful love story around the fact, and even the breakup to me was beautiful because of the fact that it's so realistic.
Yeah, because then she asked, right? She goes, if if I had slept with him that night,
how would you feel?
how would you feel?
And it's
And
real.
he was just like,
and it's real because in you almost every single relationship that you've had, I'm sure, not every relationship you have, but I'm sure with all of the relationships that people have had, they've had to ask themselves that question.
yeah. And he killed that answer too. He was all like, I wouldn't have liked it, but I wouldn't have left.
Yeah. And it's all like, and it's all cool and all and stuff like that, but it's at the same time, it's like, but y'all were broken up. So
yeah.
So
but this is what I'm saying. I do think he was highly insensitive.
Yeah.
I do think that he made a mistake.
Yeah.
I do think that it was an emotional betrayal. I don't think that he was a cheater.
I don't think so either.
I think that afterwards, especially when she writes that note, that shit
Yeah.
set me off. I was in the book. I was like watching that episode, and I watched it live. Like mind you, like you guys saw it whenever like I brought all the discs home or whatever, and I bootlegged the discs and shit.
Yeah.
Like I saw it live. So like right at the end when he's reading the pages and he's like, my mother said, once a cheater, always a cheater. That set me the fuck off.
Yeah.
Because I was like,
no, I don't think Ross,
I was all like, he's not a cheater.
I don't
He's
think
not
Ross
a cheater.
is a cheater. And
I
this is
think
the thing,
if you
it's
wanted
like-
to be, if you wanted to have reservations about getting back together with him because of his judgment,
Yeah.
because of his insecurity, because of his clinginess, because of his like of all those things, fair game.
Fair game.
Fair
All the
game.
way, but not because of a
100%
cheater.
fair game. But if you want to not get back with him or have reservations because of him cheating, I don't fuck with that at all.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think he did. I just don't
Yeah.
think that he
I also-
cheated on her.
I get, and like,
Cheating is a form of emotional betrayal,
Yeah, of
but I
course.
don't think that that's
and
how.
I don't think
that's
that
what
he-
happened there.
I don't think he cheated on her for the soul. Well, and honestly, this just goes back to the way everybody is a little different in that sense. Like, to me, taking a break means, baby, I don't want to be with you, but I don't want to tell you I'm breaking up with you just yet. I'm telling you we need a break. Like
I might reconsider this.
Yeah, but in order.
But that's why that terminology is so
But not
weird
e-
to
yeah,
people.
and
Because
even
a
then-
break, it means a break has this underlying assumption that we're going to try again. That we're going to come back
and
together.
you know what though? To me, a break has always meant I'm not going back to you. So to me, a break is a way to say, let's take a break right now. And maybe we will come back to this, but ultimately, if I'm choosing to take a break from a relationship, it's not because I'm feeling necessarily overwhelmed. It's just because of the fact that there has been enough things going on for me. My type of personality would be, there's been enough things going on that have already put me to the point where I feel like I might just have to walk away from you,
Right.
entirely.
But that's a breakup.
Meanwhile, I know maybe other people like Rachel.
Some
maybe,
people have been on
was,
breaks
the kind of
and,
character
like-
that was, no, I just need some time to think.
Well, what about people that like are making lifestyle changes, right? Like new jobs, new whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You're moving or this and that, and you're trying to figure out what it is if you're actually going to stay in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a break might be necessary in that sense to clear your head, find yourself and figure out whether that's what you really want.
Yeah.
And there's still some sort of like, it's not necessarily a breakup per se, but it's one of those things where like we're still going to be tethered to some degree, but like I need space to like really figure out what I want to do.
I guess I'm just the kind of person who doesn't.
Because we're
need
looking
that.
at this right now, at least the way you're speaking about it is like you're asking for a break because there's been a series of red flags. But sometimes breaks happen for
Yeah.
completely different reasons. Like
Sure.
maybe there's no red flags. Maybe the relationship
And-
is good, but like
and
things are happening
I
in each
think
other's
a lot of
lives.
the-
Maybe you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think a lot of this goes kind of back to like this generational thing, like a cultural thing, where like I was as a woman taught, which is not necessarily the best thing, was I was taught that you stick it through until you know you can no longer do it. Like there is no such thing as like I want to take a break from you right now. It's I got to stick with you, stick through it, stick through
Thick
whatever.
and thin, yeah.
Yeah, and then this is the thing though, once I know 100% in my gut that I can't do this anymore, I'm not walking back to you. There's no such thing as me turning around and being like, you know what, never mind. It's no, this is it, this is done. It took all this time for me to say it's no longer going to be a thing. Like this is no longer something that I want. Like
See,
if I'm even tethering on it, I'm still going to stay with you.
See, no, I actually had the experience that like Juan is talking about when I was in high school, because the person that I was with, we just like I wasn't at a point that I was ready to be in
Yeah.
like that committed of a
Yeah.
relationship. And I was completely changing, like,
Yeah.
and I started to realize that like we were growing apart from each other. And at some point we decided to take a break, that we weren't like in the space to be together. So, and in my head immediately I was like, okay, we're not together. And I was really trying to like have my freedom. And so I was at a party and I ended up making out with somebody else. And I do think it was insensitive because I just think at the end of the day, if you still have intention to try to go back and talk through things and possibly make things work, then you do still have to have that mindset there of like worrying about the other person and how it's going to make them feel if you guys are going to try to make it work and work it out. So, yeah, I definitely think that was wrong on my part to have done that because at the end of the day, it made him feel like shit later.
Yeah.
And I still cared about him in that way. But so I went through that exact thing of being like,
your life was changing.
My life was changing. My whole like mindset was changing, and I needed
that's completely valid, and like I think it happens to a lot of people where like that kind
I mean,
of
most
situation.
of my past relationships, if not all of my past relationships that you've known, relationships that like girls that I've called my girlfriends, we've ended because we've wanted different things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm always essentially the one that actually makes a decision, but it's essentially because of that. I want X, you want Y. There's no way that we can actually make this work. Yeah. And not to my credit, but like to in respect to that relationship and respect to that those decisions, I'm pretty much cool with the exception of one person. I'm pretty much cool with all of my exes. Yeah. Like we talk, you know what I mean? And it's not because like there's this like lingering thing. Like you, I probably wouldn't. I'm never gonna go back to in that way to people that I've been involved with. But because we've wanted different things, because you're growing out of it or whatever it is, like it's really easy for me to say like, oh no, like we gave it what it was, and like now we're here, and like. It's cool. Like, I wish you the best. And of course, it's not like that at the beginning of it, right? The beginning is always crazy, but like, or at least hard. But that's eventually where it ends up because of the fact that so technically in terms of like a break, like I can see how people might be in very distinct circumstances where like, maybe you're going to grad school or maybe you're, you know what I mean? And you don't know where you want, you don't know what you want to do with your life or the kind of person you want to be. And like, you know what I mean? You're stuck in this fork in the road between like options that you have. Do I want to keep this option and be this kind of person? But I also kind of have this like, this urge or desire to be this kind or even experience what this kind of person lives through. Or you know what I mean? Just in general, those kinds of things. And I think that those are all necessarily, they're all valid. Yeah. And a break in that sense might come into somebody's mind because of the fact that like it's a very unique circumstance. Yeah. Not necessarily like a whole bunch of red flags and it's like, no, I don't want to be here anymore. Like that's a breakup. You know what I mean? Yeah. A break might just be a very specific circumstance. But to Bree's point and to the point I made about Ross and his insensitivity, if you are going to keep communicating with somebody, if you're going to have them in your life to some degree, and even if you don't actually have romantic feelings for them anymore, it would still say a lot about you as a person if you, when you're around them, knowing that they have strong feelings for you, you watch the way that you behave. Yeah. You don't owe them anything. Yeah. You don't owe them absolutely a thing. You're not doing anything wrong by acting in any way, shape, or form, but it does say a lot about you as your character. It does say a lot about you as a person. If you say like, you know what, I still care about this person to some degree, not in the same way that this person feels about me, but I'm not just gonna flaunt this thing or I'm not just gonna do this thing that I know is gonna be emotionally troubling for them. I can do that without anybody having to see. You know what I mean? I can do that on my own time. I can do that. You know what I mean? Like, it says a lot about you whenever you make those kinds of decisions. You know what I mean?
It talks about, again, going back to the emotional maturity part, because I, for one, being somebody who's very young, I'm only 23, like, I don't necessarily have all that much experience in dating, only because my past relationship was a really, really long one, and it was one that was started in high school, and it was on that one that ended in my early 20s. So that long, it was 6-year, 7-year, relationship.
Yeah, it's a different one. Yeah,
is very different from what a lot of people are going through, and that's why at the times that I've taken a break, that breaks were taken in that particular relationship,
it had a more of a permanent hold.
It was more of a like, okay, this is a break that's happening. I'm the first, for instance, just for the purpose of the episode, where I'm going to talk about the fact that like the first break that happened in that relationship was when only the emotional immaturity was present in the relationship. So for the first 2 to 3 years, put it that way, it was just emotional immaturity that caused the rift. Thus, it was easy for me to come back and say,
on both your ends.
On both our ends, yes.
Like
I was
emotionally
immature. I mean, I was only like 16 years
right.
old. So
this goes back to the point I was making about the Notebook. About like, man, she's 18. Like she's gonna grow into a different person.
So like that's why to me it was like, well, it's easy for both of us to come back because we were just emotionally immature.
Mm-hmm.
Now graduating that over to the last part of the relationship where it wasn't.
You just realized that you were two different people wanting two different things.
It wasn't just emotional immaturity. It was red flags on both ends.
It was compatibility.
It was compatibility. It was the fact that, red flags on my end that I was no longer able to sustain, due to circumstances, and red flags on his end that he noticed about me that was like, okay, this is not something that we should be doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Granted, me initiating the breakup was a little different, and that's why I was no longer taking breaks at that time. And I unfortunately and immaturely said, let's take a break. When I did say that, last time.
When you should have said,
I no longer want to be with you. Right, yes. Yeah. And that's why, to me now,
but to be fair, that's a really hard thing to say.
It's a really hard thing to say when it's a 6-year-long relationship with.
I was about to ask, have you ever broken up with somebody? But I guess you just described it. Have you ever had to say that to somebody?
Yeah.
Was that difficult? Or was it easy because you had already made up your mind?
I guess, again, like thinking about my high school relationship, me and that person were together for 3 years. And we were off and on kind of the whole time. And there were already times that we didn't say, like, we need a break. We would say, like we should break up. We should not be together. And then we just kept coming back to each other. But
That's
then
different.
I just realized that at some point there was a difference there. There was like a very big difference of like, no, this is fizzled. Like, it's out.
It's done. Yeah.
I've had to do that a couple times.
Yeah.
And I've also been in situations where I am out in public and it just so happens that somebody's around that I should be really mindful about how I act. Not because I owe them anything, and not because I'm like because I still have feelings for them or something like that, but just out of like decency sake.
And
you know what I mean? Just out of like, you know what, if I really want to do X, Y, and Z, and this is happening and I'm in this crowd, like maybe I should leave the crowd. Maybe I should go do something else. Maybe I should go, you know what I mean? I've been in that situation too, where I'm just like, I need to be very mindful about how I act.
That is something, because at the time of the year, about a year and a half ago, a year and a couple months ago, was when the breakup initiated. Granted, my particular relationship or my particular situation is a bit more complicated only because there's a kid involved in it.
Always, yeah.
So the child makes it so much more complicated because I will always see this person for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And there is no hard feelings there. I feel love and compassion for the person that has been there with me through literally the hardest times of my life and seen all this development, and them. And we've seen each other grow up literally, and now we're raising a child, So I hold no resentment in that sense. And I think at the very beginning I did. And you brought up that particular thing that you're talking about right now, having that decency, of being mindful, because I was the one who initiated the breakup. The breakup would not have been initiated had I not said anything. Thus, I would still be with the person if I chose to just say
right,
to keep my peace.
I also say that because I've been on the other side of that coin.
That too.
I've been the one that's been somewhere and I'm still like emotionally like attached to somebody, and then I see things happen and it's like, very hurtful, despite the fact that I can't necessarily what's the word I'm looking for? Get upset about it. Like I can't necessarily like file a claim. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I can't necessarily be like, yo, what's up? Like, I mean, I could be emotional and like wild out.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, I know where my boundary is. You know what I mean? I know that I can't cross that boundary, and I know that I have to be respectful. So but it doesn't change the fact that it hurts.
And I've
you
never,
know what I mean? So,
I've never
so
been
because
on
of
that
that,
end.
and I think because of that, I've in those moments, I've told myself, okay, should I ever be in that position?
Yeah.
I'm not going to act like that.
And I think
not because I owe them something,
Yeah.
but because like it does show a lot about somebody.
it shows a lot
It
about
shows
your
a lot
character.
of character. You know what I mean?
So to me, getting out of this fresh out of that relationship, my emotional maturity clearly, obviously, still wasn't at its best, but it was enough. There was enough emotional maturity or growth that was happening that led me to make the better decision for both of us. Thus, the ending of the relationship. Now, fast forward a year and a half later, we're talking about a completely different Marcia here. So we're talking about somebody who has now understood exactly what you said in that sense, because I had never had to go through that. I've never actually been broken up with to the point where I have to see that person and you know, live through that. And I have gotten to the point where you're right. Like, yes, you have to be mindful about the things that you do around these people, especially when you're the one making the decision when you know it's willingly hurting the person, or like it's you know gonna hurt them.
It just affects them. Yeah. I mean, you don't know how it's affecting
them,
but you know that it might
but it
affect
can affect them in any way, shape, or form. You know, so you should just be mindful of that, and just in general. And now, as the person who has matured a lot through being alone, raising a kid alone, essentially, and just being more in tune with loneliness and with that like solitude that, like, you know, I feel like is required to be able to emotionally heal and grow, especially from such a long relationship. I've come to like the idea that it's always just, how to put it, but like it takes a lot to get to that point of understanding and mindfulness, even though, like, kind of to bring it back to the Ross and Rachel thing, it's like he might not have been conscious of that simply because of the fact that it was all like he was hurt over things that he thought were happening.
He was acting on impulse, and he wasn't. Yeah,
and I'm sure,
which is real, by the way. Like in certain kind of situations, especially if I'm on the phone and I hear homeboy in the back, like, bruh, like, I'm not saying I would do what he did, but I would definitely be pressed. I would definitely be like on some other shit.
I'm